September 14, 1967. 6:12 a.m. Stage 12, Warner Bros. Studios, Burbank. The air inside the soundstage is still cool, untouched by lights or voices. Coffee steams from paper cups balanced on folding tables. A grip drags a cable across the concrete floor, the rubber squealing softly in the quiet. Call sheets are being handed out. Thin paper, cheap ink, folded once then again, nothing dramatic about them. No signatures, no ceremony. Just paper. A production assistant moves down the line, passing them to department heads first. Assistant directors, script supervisors, wardrobe, camera, sound. You can tell who's important by how early they get one. The star usually gets theirs last, delivered personally with a nod, sometimes a joke. A reminder that the day bends around their availability. But today something is different. The assistant pauses, hesitates, then keeps walking. The star is already here. They arrived early as they always do. Habit, control, a quiet way of reminding everyone they're serious. They take a call sheet from a stack left on a chair. At first glance it looks normal. Scene numbers, page counts, estimated shoot time, weather note clear, warm by noon, nothing alarming. Then the eyes move up. The header. Where the name always is. Where it has been for years. Where it was yesterday. It isn't there. The production title sits alone now, centered, clean, no star credit above it, no bold lettering, no hierarchy announced. Just a film, not a person. No announcement was made, no conversation happened, no meeting was scheduled. The star reads it again, slowly. Once. Twice. You don't gasp when something like this happens, you don't confront anyone, not if you understand Hollywood. You look around instead. You notice who avoids eye contact. You notice who suddenly seems very busy. You notice that the assistant director doesn't correct it, doesn't explain, doesn't apologize. They just say, "We're aiming for rehearsal at 7:45. And walk away. This is how power moves here. Not loudly, not angrily. Administratively. A call sheet is not a contract. It doesn't change your pay, it doesn't fire you, it doesn't demote you on paper. But everyone on set understands what it means. The call sheet is the day's constitution. It tells people who matters today, who time is protected for, who the schedule will bend around, and who will be asked to bend instead. Removing a name from the header doesn't mean you're gone. It means you're no longer the axis. The star stands there longer than necessary, pretending to read scene notes they already know by heart. Inside, something shifts. Not panic. Not anger. Something colder. Recognition. They've seen this before, not to them but to others. An older actor whose scenes suddenly shot faster. A once essential supporting player whose trailer quietly moved closer to the parking lot. A name that slid from first position to second without explanation. They always thought those moments followed failure. Bad numbers, bad behavior, bad press. But none of that applies here. The film is on schedule, the studio is pleased, the press coverage is solid, the dailies are fine. So why this? Because this isn't about punishment. It's about testing. Studios rarely remove power outright, that creates noise, resistance, lawyers. Instead they adjust gravity. They see what happens when a system no longer orbits one person. They see how the day runs. Who steps forward? Who fills silence? Who the crew looks to when decisions need to be made quickly. This change won't be discussed in meetings. It will be observed in hallways. The assistant directors will note whether the day runs smoother. The producers will note whether delays decrease. The studio will note whether anything breaks without the old center holding it together. And the star knows it. That's the cruelest part. Nothing to argue against, nothing to defend. Only a document that says without saying. Let's see what happens if you're still here, but no longer essential. The star folds the call sheet carefully, too carefully. Across the stage, the director is already talking to someone else, a newer face, confident, engaged. The star waits to be called over. They aren't. Not yet. For the first time in years, they are early and irrelevant. And somewhere in an office far from this stage, someone will later say, "Interesting, the day still worked." The lights come up slowly. Not all at once, one bank at a time, white glare crawling across unfinished sets. The soundstage warms physically and socially, conversations start, jokes land, departments fall into rhythm. The star takes their place near the edge of the set. Not hidden, not excluded. Just not centered. This is the most disorienting part. There is no dramatic exile, no chair removed, no order barked. They are included in everything that matters technically. But nothing pauses for them anymore. The assistant director calls for rehearsal without checking in first. The camera team locks a lens before asking for input. The director blocks a scene with stand-ins longer than usual, fine-tuning angles before inviting the star in. Small things. Harmless things. Except they add up. Hollywood trains its stars to equate presence with power. If you're on set, if you're working, if your face is in the frame, then you still matter. But that equation only holds when the machine acknowledges you as its center. Without that, presence becomes performance without authority. The star notices that notes are now phrased differently. Not "what do you think?" but "we're thinking of trying this." Not "do you want another take?" but "let's grab one more." Language is the first thing that changes when power shifts, not the big words, the prepositions, the tone, the assumptions embedded inside a sentence. You can hear it if you're trained. And this star is trained. They've negotiated contracts, fought for final cut clauses, walked out of meetings that went sideways. They know confrontation. This isn't that. This is something far more difficult to fight. Because it's happening without intention. Or at least that's how it's framed. No one can be accused of disrespect. Everyone is polite, everyone is professional. And yet, when the star offers a suggestion, just one, it doesn't stop the room anymore. The director nods, smiles. Let's try it the other way first. First. Not instead. That word hangs in the air. Because first now belongs to someone else's instinct. This is how Hollywood measures indispensability. Not by applause, not by contracts, but by how much oxygen you consume in the room without asking. At lunch, the star sits with people they've known for years. But the conversation doesn't orbit them. A producer is talking about post-production schedules with the editor. The director leans in, engaged. Someone mentions another project, next year, early development. The star listens. No one asks if they're interested. No one asks if they're available. Availability used to be assumed. Now it's a question that hasn't been asked yet. And that's the danger zone. Hollywood doesn't remove people abruptly unless it has to, it waits. It waits to see who adjusts, who reasserts, who resists, and who quietly recalibrates. The star eats half their lunch and pushes the plate away. They're not hungry anymore. They're thinking. They realize something unsettling. Nothing they do today can reverse this. You can't act your way back into structural power. You can't deliver a performance so strong it rewrites paperwork. The call sheet was printed at midnight. The decision was made somewhere else, by people who won't be on set to feel its effects. That's the genius of it. The studio doesn't need to explain itself, the set absorbs the change organically. Everyone adjusts their behavior just enough to stay aligned with whoever seems safest to align with. And safety in this business flows toward momentum, not legacy. The star considers confronting someone, the director, the producer, anyone. But what would they say? Why is my name missing? The answer would be calm, reasonable. Oh, just a formatting update. New template from production. Nothing personal. Nothing actionable. Nothing you can argue without looking paranoid. This is how power hides behind neutrality. By the end of the day, the star has delivered every line flawlessly. They hit their marks, they give options, they are professional. The crew applauds politely after the final take. It feels thinner than it used to. As the lights shut down and people pack up, the star notices something else. No one asks about tomorrow. The call sheet will do that. And for the first time, the star wonders if showing up every day on time, prepared, might no longer be the leverage it once was. Because when presence stops meaning control, the only remaining power move is absence. And that thought lingers, dangerous and quiet, as the stage goes dark. The next morning doesn't begin on a soundstage. It begins in a quiet kitchen. Sunlight cuts across a polished table, coffee cools untouched, the folded call sheet sits beside the cup unopened. For years, this ritual has been automatic: wake, scan, prepare, arrive early. Not today. The star stares at the paper longer than necessary, then sets it aside. They're not late. They're not refusing. They're simply not accelerating. Hollywood runs on speed, on urgency, on the unspoken belief that if you slow down, someone else will fill the space you vacate. That fear keeps people compliant. It keeps stars visible even when visibility is no longer leverage. The star knows this logic, they've lived inside it. But today something feels different. Not rebellious. Deliberate. They arrive exactly when called, not early, not apologetic. On set no one comments. Which is its own comment. The day runs smoothly. That's the data point the studio is looking for. But something else happens too. The director hesitates before moving on to the next setup, a half-second pause, a glance. The star notices it. Momentum is still there, but not as clean as yesterday. At lunch, the star doesn't linger, doesn't hold court, doesn't offer opinions unless asked. They are cooperative, not catalytic. And the room feels it. This is the paradox of Hollywood power. When you stop feeding the machine your constant availability, the machine begins to notice the cost of replacing it. Not immediately. Not dramatically. But in small inefficiencies. A line reading that lacks texture, a rehearsal that runs longer than expected, a decision that feels slightly less confident. By midweek, the pattern is set. The star is present, but not buffering the process anymore. They leave when wrapped. They don't hover. They don't chase approval. And slowly, quietly, the studio's experiment starts returning mixed results. Yes, the film continues. Yes, the schedule holds. But something intangible has flattened. The energy. The decisiveness. The invisible glue that held things together when pressure hit. This is when the second phase begins. Not on set but in offices. Executives compare notes. Not accusations, not blame. Observations. The days feel longer. The director asking for more coverage. Performance options are thinner. Nothing alarming. Nothing worth revering course over. Yet, this is where career pauses are born. Not as announcements. As space. The star senses it before anyone says a word. They stop talking about future projects and interviews. They decline a general meeting they would have taken automatically 6 months ago. They pass on a role that feels like noise. Hollywood interprets this instantly. Not as retreat. As recalibration. Absence when chosen reframes power. It forces the industry to decide whether it misses you or merely tolerates you. The star isn't trying to punish the studio. They're testing something. The same way the studio tested them. What happens if I stop being frictionless? What happens if I stop filling every gap? The call sheet arrives again. Still no name in the header. But now it doesn't sting the same way. Because the star has realized something the paper didn't anticipate. If power can be reduced quietly, it can also be withdrawn quietly. And that realization changes everything. By the second week, the silence is noticeable. Not on set. In conversations that don't happen. No follow-up call after wrap. No casual lunch invite from a producer. No quick coffee meeting that turns into a soft pitch. The star has entered a different category. Not difficult. Not fired. Not forgotten. Unpredictable. Hollywood is comfortable with almost anything except that. Studios understand egos, they understand demands, they even understand walkouts. What unsettles them is restraint. Because restraint removes leverage from both sides. The star's phone still rings, but differently now. Publicists check in instead of pitching, agents ask questions instead of pushing scripts. Are you thinking of working next year? Do you want to be visible for awards? Should we keep your calendar flexible? Flexible. A word that used to mean available. Now it means unknown. The industry begins adjusting around that uncertainty. Another actor is tested for a role that would have been a formality. A director hesitates before building a project around a single face. Marketing quietly prepares alternate campaign angles. None of this is punishment. It's contingency planning. And that's when the studio realizes something uncomfortable. By removing the star's name from the call sheet, they didn't weaken them. They gave them clarity. For the first time in years, the star isn't reacting. They're observing. They watch how quickly attention shifts when you don't chase it. They watch how power reveals itself when you stop performing urgency. This pause, this measured absence, creates a vacuum Hollywood hates to name. Because it exposes how much of the system depends on people overextending themselves out of fear. Fear of being replaced. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of becoming former. The star refuses that fear. They show up, they do the work, they leave. And the industry has to decide what that means. This is the quiet standoff no one reports on. No headlines, no statements. Just a recalibration happening in real time. The studio starts asking a new question, not aloud but in internal emails. What if they don't come back the same way? Because the star is no longer chasing relevance. They're letting relevance chase them. And that's when legacy begins to shift. Not through triumph. Through refusal. Months later, people will struggle to pinpoint when the change happened. There is no single moment, no press release, no dramatic exit. Just a sequence of decisions that look small on their own and irreversible together. The star finishes the film, cleanly, professionally, no friction. They don't immediately sign onto another project. That absence is noticed. Not publicly, privately. Agents field more calls than offers. Studios ask questions before proposing terms, directors probe availability without assuming interest. The power dynamic has inverted. Once, the star's value came from being the center of motion. Now it comes from being selective. This is where Hollywood gets uncomfortable. Because the industry is designed to reward constant output. To equate relevance with volume. To treat slowing down as a warning sign. But this pause doesn't read as decline. It reads as intention. The star begins choosing projects differently. Smaller roles, sharper material, fewer days on set, more control. They turn down a sequel that would have guaranteed visibility. They pass on a franchise meeting that smells like obligation. And suddenly the narrative changes. Not what happened to them, but what are they waiting for? Waiting implies leverage. And leverage invites respect. The studio that once tested their replaceability now recalibrates its tone. A producer reaches out with a different energy. We'd love to build something around you. Not with you. Around. The star listens. They don't rush to say yes. Because they understand now, Hollywood reveals its true hierarchy when you stop scrambling to maintain yours. That call sheet, the missing name, wasn't the end of power. It was the moment power stopped being automatic. The star didn't regain control by fighting. They regained it by redefining participation. This is the untold truth of Hollywood longevity. Some careers don't end. They narrow. And in that narrowing, influence sharpens. The studio learned something too. That removing a name from paper doesn't always diminish it. Sometimes it frees the person attached to it. And once freed, they no longer orbit the system. They choose when and whether to return.